Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of Prolic's Comics Bollix, where myself, Strontium Nick, and himself
A building.
talk talk comics.
That
And
was that was quite pathetic, wasn't it?
I kind of liked it. Um,
I think I can't remember. I think there's some 60s like nudie film that's something we had put out that might have that credit, I think.
a character called Building. Yeah, awesome.
Building, yeah. Well, funny enough, I was gonna,
Um,
so I'm recording tomorrow with
mhm,
Darren and Rodney. And
mhm.
there's a I discovered there's a Chinese actor in one of the films we're watching. And if you read his name, it's Man Dingo,
Ooh.
which I'm wondering is that a
Hmm.
made-up name or Mandingo?
Hmm. Interesting.
That's a hell of a name.
That is, yeah. Um, anyway, so we're not here
Yes.
to talk about that at all.
No, 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 but we're trying to stretch it out.
What we are here to talk about is
How'd your
Starlord.
kitchen cleaning go, Nick?
Yeah, not bad, not bad.
Yeah? Did
And a lot
you?
of mint, a lot of mint grew up in the window. I had these mint plants, and if you know anything about mint, you'll know that it just goes ape shit if you expose it to. If you put it in soil and add water to it, mint just goes wild.
Is that right?
Um, so it had filled up the entire window, and then it suddenly all died. So we had this masses of this kind of dead, autumnal-looking mint in the window that I needed to deal with today.
I'm imagining Alan Tishmash, if he wants to knock one out, he puts on a copy of his VHS of Mint Gone Wild.
That's the one. Yes.
Oh, you
Um,
weren't like in the oven and stuff like that, and
no, I was actually cleaning as well. I was cleaning the kitchen, but again, I we should bring it back. I
no,
know
no.
you
But
don't.
I'm aware that this is going to last all of a minute otherwise, so
No,
I'm
I,
going to
I think
bring
it
in
might
other
go.
things
It
when I
might go a
can.
little bit longer because I did actually take the time to listen to a nearly hour-long podcast
Oh,
uh, on the subject of
oh,
today's
thanks for
podcast. Uh,
sending the link, motherfucker.
no problem. I did it today. Well, it's the 2000 AD one, the Thrill Cast. Um,
Oh,
2000.
okay. Yeah, I don't know that one. I listen to Mega City Book Club, but I've never started. Is Thrillcast? That's the actual people themselves behind.
I think it
Yeah,
is. Sometimes it is the editor
yeah.
of like, the present editor of
Is it
2000
quite
AD.
good or?
Well, I mean, it was interesting for me. I mean, obviously, unsurprisingly, it's going to be hard not to do it in this conversation. Most people, when talking about Starlord, which is what we're talking about today, talk about it entirely in relation to 2000 AD, right? Which makes a certain amount of sense. But then you realize at a certain point, you're more talking about 2000 AD than you're actually talking about Starlord. And there was a little bit of that in the podcast I listened to.
Right.
Um, but makes
Yeah,
sense. I
go on
mean,
YouTube. The 2080 Thrillcast Starlord, 40 years on that one, right?
yes, yeah, yeah.
Oh, I
Um,
shall. I shall.
it was a round table, but as I said, it does lean.
Look at that.
Understandably, it is a 2000 AD podcast, so it does lean heavily into more talking about the relationship
Yeah.
between.
Although, yeah,
Uh,
to be fair, I don't know how much I really want to know about Mind Wars, but
well,
we
it's like, I don't know if they get really that heavily into that, but anyway. So back in 1978, basically from the 13th of May to the 7th of October 1978, Star-Lord was a British weekly boys comic. It ran for 22 issues before it was merged into 2000 AD, which is something I didn't know about this, but they had apparently IPC magazines, which was a publisher of 2000 AD and Battle and Action and all of these other kind of comics of the era, had an editorial policy they called Hatch, Match, and Dispatch, where basically they would
it's like
create
the
a new
three
title.
F's for teenage boys, right?
Yeah, they would create a title. So an example would be like 2000 AD. And then after a certain amount of time, they would basically create a competing title within like under their own umbrella to directly compete with the title they already had. And then
Right,
whichever one of them survived, or whichever was more popular, would absorb the other one in an attempt
right.
to kind of like
Well,
expand the readership.
what was the other one that got merged into 2008? Was it War?
Tornado.
Huh?
Tornado.
A tornado. I
Yeah.
what was War?
2080. So Warlord was actually merged into Eagle, I'm pretty sure.
Ah, okay. And wasn't also like a an attempt to relaunch. Wasn't there like a new Hotspur that got merged into something as well at some point? Not the
Possibly.
original Hotspur, but I
I
might be
remember Wizard and Chips. That's another example. Unless Wizard and Chips started out as Wizard
as
and Chips.
Wizard and Chips,
Okay,
as did Shiver and Shake.
right. Um, but
You
and
did
then
forget, well, you did forget as well as the 22 issues. There's a summer special
hmm,
of
yes,
Starlord before it. So 2080 started prior to Starlord, right?
yes. 2080 is about like a year and a half or something, or 2 years old at the point at which they do this.
Right. Still hasn't quite found its feet,
No,
right?
no, it's in the process. It's just starting to though. Like I think
Right.
it's around the time that the Cursed Earth is running and yeah. So, but it still has some of the holdovers. So its first couple of years. So again, this is perfect. We're already talking about 2000 AD
Yeah, yeah.
and not
I think it's
Starlord.
inevitable, really.
So yeah, it's like I mean to cut to the end of this, basically this podcast. What really happens is the merger of Starlord in 2000 AD actually is a good thing for 2000 AD because it brings over two quite strong like IPs that
Yeah.
basically end up running for years and years and years in 2000 AD. It brings over Strontium Dog and it
Which is
brings
about
over
Mind Wars and Time Quake, those
Time Quake
endless
exactly.
classics.
Yes. Which yes, everyone remembers.
Everyone loves those. Yeah,
Um,
no, Strontium Dog and Ro-Busters, right?
Ro-Busters, yeah, which
Yeah.
becomes ABC Warriors over time. And so um,
Ro-Busters as written by Pat Mills as well, right?
yes, yeah, yeah, and Strontium Dog as written by John Wagner, and then
Yeah.
John Wagner, and Alan
Who
Grant,
who
who also are
who
doing
draws
Red.
Ro-Busters? Is it Redondo?
There's a few different people. One of them actually is I think Ian Gibson, not Ian Gibson, sorry, not Ian Gibson, the other Gibson. What the oh shit, the guy who then later on does the. He's kind of got more of an old-fashioned kind of a 50s look to a 60s look
Ah,
to his thing.
yes, yes. I
He
know
ends
what
up
you mean.
taking he ends up taking over for um, uh, Dan Dare
Right,
when Eagle starts up again properly as Eagle.
right.
Because weirdly, at this period of time, Dan Dare is appearing in 2000 AD.
And it's what's his name? Scapanelli,
Bernard,
Bardinelli.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Bellardinelli, and then Dave Gibbons.
But the Bernardinelli Dande stuff, I really like. Not
Yeah,
just
because
narratively, but the artwork is astonishing. And like you
yeah,
said, when they relaunched, they decided to go back to like classic Dande looking 50s stuff,
yes.
which I do like as well. But it's a shame. As far as
Sorry,
I know,
Ian
there was never
Kennedy.
like a good run
Not,
of the
sorry.
Bardinelli Dande written by a really good writer.
No, unfortunately not.
Because that
But
would
it's
make for a hell of a
beautiful,
graphic novel to
beautiful
collect
to
it
look
as.
at.
Yeah, yeah.
But sorry, it was Ian Kennedy
Ian Kennedy, right.
who did, yeah, and his stuff is actually quite nice. But one of the complaints, I think, generally speaking, so when they did this thing, so the then editor of 2000 AD, Kelvin Gosnell, was more or less tasked with doing Starlord, which was going to be like a competing title, but still kind of also running 2000 AD. But that's a challenging job. And a lot of the 2000 AD people were not interested in working on it. Like specifically, I think Kevin O'Neill was like, absolutely not. I have no like I'm not
Right,
because they felt like 2000 AD was like the project worth following through with. Like I think they were
right,
like it was a bit edgier, a bit meaner, a bit punkier, and it was hiring artists who were younger and more hungry, I think. So you have,
right. It was in
you
the
know,
action vein, right?
exactly. And well, speaking of Hatch Match, so when Action was and that was a little different because Action was extremely popular. It was more it was folded into another title more because of the controversy around it, right?
Yes,
But
yes.
it was folded into battle.
Right. Well, the one thing I do appreciate about Starlord is that it could have, I can easily see, in time and place, they could have lent in a lot heavier to it, to being more Star Warsy bollocks, right? But what I appreciate
Yes.
is nothing in it is really, I suppose Mind Wars maybe comes closest to that. Um,
Yeah, it's a bit
Planet of the
Star
Damned
Trek.
is a bit more yaw, so that's
Yes.
fine.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Planet
we
of the
should also
Damned.
mention as well when we're talking from the get-go, the classic Strontium Dog look is Carlos Esquera, right? That
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of that. It's funny. I remember it's so evocative from when I was a kid. I remember the first time I reading anything by Carlos. He draws in that style where everything looks like it's just about to be atomized and
Yes.
fall apart. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah.
everything, nothing seems to have a straight edge. Everything's
Hmm.
just on the verge of.
Flying apart.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. I don't know how he quite, but there's something about it that because that look could be ugly, like it's just
Yeah.
on the edge of being a bit ugly, but it's so like bursting with life. It's a fascinating. I'm not sure. I know he has imitators, but
Yes. Yes. And anyone
but
who was
fuck,
brought
no
in
one
to
does it
do
quite like him, right?
no, anyone who was kind of brought in to do Strontium Dog later on had to some degree ape his
Yes.
style, but no one can, no
No,
one can
because it's not
replicate
Strontium
him.
Dog otherwise, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, so basically, I mean, I think the biggest issue ultimately with so the stories, I guess we should go quickly. So the stories are Mind Wars, and it's the most to me, it's the most kind of Star Trekky. It's the most kind of like straight ahead science fiction
Yeah.
bollocks,
It's really easy to zone out of as well.
Yeah, the
I think
evil.
after about
Although
three,
the drawing's great.
the drawing's great, but after about three issues, I was starting to find it incomprehensible because I was just zoning out.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
couldn't focus on that bollocks any longer. It's like
yes,
it's like
yeah,
what.
yeah. But
But no,
Jesus,
artwork across the board, we should say there's
has,
nothing in here bad. There's nothing
no,
shonky. It's all
no,
top
it's all
quality
good.
stuff.
And it's a good mix of British talent and then the usual kind of either South American or kind of continental European. But that's one thing that's fascinating to me. So apparently, when it was originally launched, it was in part an attempt to compete with, of all things, Metal Hurlant. The idea was
Ah, right.
it was published and this was also unfair, I think, to the actual creators involved. But it was supposed to not be a weekly. It was supposed to have been like either a monthly or a bi-weekly. It was supposed to
Right.
be thicker with longer stories. And the one thing they did keep was it was on a higher quality paper with much more sophisticated printing for the color. So
Right.
it looked and it had more color. Like it didn't just have like
Yeah, that's
2008
true.
color covers and a color center spread. It had multiple pages of color through the comic, which made it more expensive, which is one of the reasons it may have actually failed. That, and I think it just didn't have the memorable stories and
No,
characters and
Strontium
the
Dog and
edge
Ro-Busters aside.
side. Yeah.
Yeah. So other
Um,
than that, like you said, we've got Mind Wars, we've got Planet of the Damned,
which
which
is
is
fun in a kind
it
of
is
cheesy, hokey
yeah,
kind of
it's like a
your.
Conan meets Bermuda Triangle alternative
Mhm.
university kind of it's quite silly. Um
Mhm.
Time Quick. Time
Kind
Quick,
of, kind of shit Doctor Who, like shit 70s Doctor Who.
but
Um,
at its center it's got basically the same guy from Invasion from 2000 AD, right?
yeah, Bill Savage. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
someone who says like
Dredger or one of
yeah, yeah,
these
someone who
characters. Yeah,
calls everyone mate or
yeah,
sport or something every
yes,
um
yeah. It's very dated in that way, but he
yeah.
does seem like he came out of maybe like one of those unit episodes of like like you could see him maybe in that era of Doctor Who.
Ray Winston as Doctor Who.
Yes, that would be actually pretty great. Like the Chav Doctor Who. Definitely a
You
direction they didn't
fucking
take.
Daleks, I'm the fucking Deadin, I'm the fucking Devros.
Ah, fuck, that'd be great. Oh, I suppose actually, what's his face, who they brought back for the first of the new Doctors, the Northerner.
Oh, Christopher Eccleston.
Yeah, he has a little bit of that. If if they'd leaned into that more, that might have been quite good. Um, but anyway, yes.
I did
So you've
appreciate
got
at least Martin Bomer turns up in it for a
yes,
while.
yeah.
And
I
then the
mean,
Aztecs with their superior UFO technology, apparently.
technology, yes. Which I feel like now that I'm thinking about it, I think that didn't Alan Moore rip that off in one of those Tom Strong things we read like years and years
Possibly.
later, like possibly unintentionally, he may have just, but very similar kind of couple of comics from yeah his Tom Strong thing. Um, yeah,
And
and
there's a few now and again. There's a few one-offs, isn't there? There's one quite good one. Oh Sheldon, I love you. The
yes,
house that was
which
quite good.
I read.
Reminded me of the 13th Floor comic.
Yes, and
Um,
I read that years before. I find if this came up in a conversation we had with Gino, where Gino was talking about some, it might have made for TV Disney movie about a robotic
yes,
kind of house that falls in love with
yes,
its.
yes, yes,
And I
yes.
was like, oh, this reminds me of an old story, which I knew it from a 2000 AD annual. Like it's a reprint in one of they had kind of harvested the organs sometimes of Starlord when they were trying to fill space in later 2000 AD
They
annuals
might
because
also have done some Scream stuff as well. Actually, 13th Floor stuff. I seem
yes.
to remember at some point in the 90s, did they put out like a collected 13th Floor? I think I had a collected 13th Floor, like not not like a hardback or just
Mhm.
like a paperback
Right.
magazine. I seem
Yeah,
to
they
remember
may
having
well
all
have
the 13th floors in one place because I
because there
love
was a
the 13th floor.
oh yeah, yeah. In fact, I'd love to read all of Scream again at some point, but I haven't been able to
They
find.
recently re put them all out actually in some sort of, I think
Okay,
maybe Treasury of British Comics or someone like that has done it.
okay, yeah, no, I would like to do that for sure on a future episode because I have very fond memories of it. Um, hopefully it'll stand up to that. But yeah, Earn Big Money While You Sleep as well. That's another one that I remember reading later on as a reprint in something 2000 AD related. Um, and I think part of the issue I have with this is a lot of the stories are written by a guy called Alan Hebden.
Ah,
And
yes.
he did Mind Wars, he did Holocaust, which is complete gibberish.
Ah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
what's even happening in that thing? Like,
That comes
invasion
in a
of
bit later
body
on, doesn't it? It's not from the
snatchers.
get-go. Is that a little bit
Oh,
later
that
on?
comes that comes in quite late in the run.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but it's just like every episode just seems to be like. I mean, I appreciate the headlong lunacy of it, but like it doesn't add together to make a story at all. It's just dude who's immediately made aware that there's like a major alien invasion of going on to try to wipe out the food stocks on Earth, and then there's all this stuff like, but it's like there's just nothing is given any time to build. It's just like oh now this madness is happening, and then this
Right.
craziness is happening. It's just
Which can work sometimes, but yeah, not yeah, I don't know. I mean, overall, I would say, yeah, obviously Strontium Dog Ro-Busters. People will get tired
yeah
of hearing that, but the thing is, it's true. I mean, there's not
yeah
much else in that. I mean, and then from about issue 11 as well, they start. You can tell they start like you said, they started off kind of ambitious, but then after a while, it starts to get a bit more like there's a Strontium Dog um board game in the
hmm
center pages, and then from about issue 11 they start getting these single page what are they hardware profiles
oh God
like a
yes
tank or a fucking thing, which is yeah very much out of battle or something like
hmm
um yeah, so those are a bit little naff touches, right? And
hmm.
I never got a strong sense of. So Starlord does seem to have some sort of, Thag like editor, right? But I
Yes
couldn't tell
yes
you his name. I couldn't tell you anything
name
about.
is Starlord.
Oh, there we go. That makes sense. But he's very like nondescript, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah, no, he sucks. And then, but apparently this was something that they did, they, which is a little in bad taste actually. But apparently 2000 AD did something for the 40th anniversary where they revealed that Star-Lord, like so many 1970s children's entertainers, was in fact some sort of like completely twisted,
Like a
fucked up
sex
dude.
pest.
I don't know if they, if they don't know if they leaned in that direction, but that like he was in fact training children to be some sort of core in an interstellar, like that. Yeah, he did not
Wow.
have children's best interests at heart.
Did Operation U3 go after Starlord?
They may well have.
I think we need
Um,
to know.
but but yeah, so it's interesting. You do see, I mean, you see Ian Gibson, who I mentioned before, not Ian Kennedy. Ian Gibson, who he actually drew all of the pictures of Star-Lord in there, and he does a couple of strips. We last saw his work actually in he did those what the fuck's his name? The Hammer uh vampire killer who isn't Van Helsing. The
Captain Kronos.
yeah, he did the Captain Kronos
Right.
comics in the in that the Hammer House of Horror magazine. Um and then most famous for Halo Jones and Robo Hunter later on.
Right.
Um but
Yeah, so Starlord, I mean, it's interesting to think about it really, considering it's just 22 issues and the summer special and the fact that it's m mostly not, I wouldn't say not good, but just unmemorable. It's interesting to me how, like, it seems to, I might be wrong about this, but it's a name that, like, has stuck around. Like, when you mentioned doing Starlord, it wasn't like, oh, what a deep cut.
mhm,
Like,
mhm.
there's something about I probably because it, so yeah, so we should say for a while, for people who don't remember that era, it wasn't just that Starlord totally disappeared and then 2000, the cover of 2000 AD would be 2000 AD and
And
Starlord
yeah,
for
for
like a
for
few
like for a
issues.
while. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, sometimes even I think actually it was 2008 Star-Lord for like quite a while until 2080 absorbed Tornado, at which point 2080 became 2080 and Tornado, and Star-Lord got dropped from the title.
Such a slut, that 2000 AD, right?
Yeah. Um, but I think this the revelation for me was how grim Strontium Dog is from the very beginning. Like
Yeah.
I'd forgotten like he has all these weapons and stuff like that are really harsh. Like
Yeah, yeah,
they're
yeah.
like they freeze people in time for a moment and then the Earth's rotated to such a point that they take them out of time so they're just floating frozen in space
Yeah.
or they're forced to relive their own death over and over again in a
Yeah.
time loop and things like that. I was just like
Yeah, me too. And
really
Ro-Busters are not harsh, but how good Ro-Busters is, right? Like I was expecting, because for
oh
instance, when Judge Dredd is introduced into 2000 AD,
it
it's,
takes a bit
takes a
takes a
little
little while.
while, takes a little
Yep.
while. But yeah, Strontium Dog is Strontium Dog, like
Out of the
straight
gate,
out
yeah.
the gate, pretty much.
He's absolutely yeah, that kind of man with no name mutant yeah, right off the bat. Um
Which is
and
why I think
then
when they have collected Strontium Dog since, they have gone back to the
yeah,
Starlords, right? And yeah,
for sure, yeah.
yeah, because
And
it's
I
a
think too
pretty
with
seamless transition, really.
With Robusters as well.
Yeah, yeah.
It's but I think I lost what I was gonna say there.
So
Um
basically, at the end of the day, after all that
hmm,
palaver, we've
hmm,
come to the groundbreaking conclusion that everyone else has come to,
hmm.
that other than Strontium Dog and Ro-Busters,
There's not
you
much
don't
to
really need to go back and pick at
know.
the bones of Star-Lord.
No. I think although it is worth remembering that like and this comes up in that discussion that we talked about the thrill power one that if it had gone the other way and if 2000 AD because apparently it was like it came down to I think maybe Nick Landau who was the overall editor at the time um which was going to absorb which was it going to be 2000 AD absorbing Star-Lord or the other way. And if it had gone the other way, the most popular strips in 2000 AD at that time were Flesh, Mach 1, and something else. But basically, Judge Dredd wouldn't have made the cut. It would have been like because it hadn't hit its stride. It was just starting to hit its stride
Yeah,
with the Cursed Earth story. And so possibly,
Harlem Globetrotters, maybe?
yeah, like it would have been because when you go back,
Not Harlem Globetrotters, Harlem Heroes, sorry.
Harlem Heroes, yeah. Those first 2 years of 2008, there's quite a lot of dross in there too. Like Mach 1 it's basically a $6 million man, right, with
Yeah.
a bit of James Bond in
Invasion.
there. Invasion, which is funny. Apparently, I never read that, but he came back to that. Pat Mills came back and re kind of did all of that, and apparently the later ones are much much better. Um,
Well, you can never trust a Volgon, right?
right.
The other thing that has been collected, apparently, oddly enough, is Planet of the Damned has been collected, I think, but with another something else called Death Planet,
Oh, okay.
which might be a I don't know a continuation or thematically similar.
Hmm.
But basically, if you finished all the episodes of Il Mondo Dior,
Hmm.
then maybe you want to get
Yeah.
collected Planet of the Damned and Death Planet.
But I think the biggest revelation for me was I had read a certain amount of that Strontium Dog stuff in reprints later on, but I hadn't actually read some of those Robuster stories, and I really liked some of them. There's
Yeah.
one where there's like a poison gas. It's basically like a the crazies, but then
Hmm.
there's also insane alligators attacking like a school bus in a
Yes. Yeah.
swamp.
That
And
was
it's
good.
like I was like, this is fantastic.
It
Like
was
just
good.
Pat
Um,
Mills added the height of his like.
yeah, and also kind of miraculous that the comedy doesn't become irritating in that in the way that Walter the robot in Judge Dredd was rather
Yes.
annoying.
Annoying. Yeah, yeah, no. Yeah,
And
Rojav's.
Ro-Busters are very much from the same torn from the same cloth, right? Some
Yeah.
of the characters that, especially the ones they meet, before they radicalize them, right? They're all very
Hmm.
Walter the robot-y, right?
Yes.
That
Yes.
stuff did not annoy me at all. Um,
No. No. And I think I mean so the design of Rojav's and Hammerstein, which is a joke I didn't get as a child at all, obviously. Um their
right,
name, right? It's
right.
completely over my head. But not being a big musicals fan as a 10-year-old or a 9-year-old. But like they were designed by uh, Kevin O'Neill, which is kind of unsurprising because they are such strong designs. Although he didn't actually draw the
Right.
characters, he didn't draw those early strips, but he did create the character mock-ups that other artists used. Um, but yeah, he gets his politics in that. That's the era where like somehow he lays it on kind of thick, but it also works. Like
Yeah.
there's enough levity in the stories, there's enough action and fun in the stories that you're like, and then obviously I'm primed to like that kind of
Yeah.
anti-capitalist stuff
The
anyway.
underdog stories, right?
Yeah. Um, there's just and they're all kind of each one of them is fun and it's a new design. They're a bit Thunderbirds as well,
Yeah.
with the like the ship and stuff. And I don't know. They
No,
were
they're that perfect. Like you said, that era which he managed to pull off. Oh, he had a handle of better than anyone else, where something was very boys' own, shamelessly boys' own adventure and violent, but yeah, also had these kind of anarchic politics. I don't know why I pronounced anarchic in
Mhm.
a very awkward fashion there. I think it's because I was just looking for the words. But anarchic politics kind of meld in there. And which is for me, that's what. And I understand it might have moved. I haven't read a new issue in fucking years, right? But for me, that's what the secret sauce of 2000 AD
Oh
was.
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. I think there's no question that everyone was listening to like Hawkwind and then into punk. Like they were very much they went hand in hand, I think. Um, and then the whole thing about action comics dying a death because they made the mistake of setting it in contemporary England, and they
Hmm.
realized well, you could get away with even more kind of acerbic jabs at authority, and you could be more violent, provided you simply set it in the future.
It's funny, isn't it? You try and imagine an alternative world where either 2000 AD became more popular in the United States, or Britain was more of a kind of powerhouse of making big budget films. I mean, to this day, the again we're ending up talking about 2000 AD again, but
Mhm.
that there's so much stuff ripe for doing cinematic adaptations, right? Which is still, I mean, there's still no Strontium Dog film.
No,
There's no Rogue Trooper
no.
film. I mean, I again, I suppose some people like Alan Jones would argue whether it doesn't have to be, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, fair enough. But it's just surprising to me that still to this day, I'm sure there must have there's probably a whole hidden. Some of them might even have written a book about it. There must be a whole hidden history of like attempts, like
Yes.
just
Yes.
treatments for
Yes. I think so.
proposed films.
I mean, I would love a Slain
Oh, that's the other. I mean,
film,
that would,
you know?
but that would tread carefully because that
Yeah.
better be good, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And none
Um,
of this slain going to stop JFK getting
no,
assassinated
no,
bollocks.
no, no.
None of
No
that.
time traveling Slain, please.
No, it's got
But
to be the
yeah,
horned god, and it's got to be borderline like unreleasable because it's so
yes,
disgustingly violent.
yes,
Like it's a hard
yes,
sell to do it properly, right? That's
yes, yeah,
and plus casting. I mean, it's got to be an unknown, I think. I don't think it works if it's someone already established.
yes,
You need a
yes,
fresh
yeah.
slate, right?
Hmm.
Anyway, we are really
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
digressed.
So yes.
Told you we would.
So I think yeah, I mean it was worth doing for me. But
Yeah, I was
definitely
happy to take a look because it's a fairly short run.
yeah.
I
But
wouldn't say
definitely what
it
was
was
left,
utterly painless, but
nope. But yeah, separating the wheat from the chaff is what they clearly did when they ported over
yeah.
the only two stories worth doing to
I consider
2018.
myself another victim of the mind wars.
Yes.
Right.
All right. So with that, we'll be back in a couple of weeks with something Japanese, we
Oh,
think,
in a month,
in a month. That's a couple of weeks, isn't it? A
times
couple
two.
extends to
See,
four,
again, the
surely.
mind wars, they fucked you up.